Alright, here is my not so quick walkthrough of the first semester final, and kind of to help you get on your notes and get going. Let's look at the questions. We'll go one by one, and I'll help you set up the questions. I'm not giving you answers, but I'll help you set. So let's start with question 1. Which Venn diagram correctly describes the relationship between set R and set W? So they talk about set R and set W, and it's kind of a fancy way to not say between set R. You could rewrite this to say which Venn diagram correctly describes the relationship between real numbers and whole numbers. So a Venn diagram is a drawing. Normally it's circles. So you can have several kinds of Venn diagrams. You can have the ones separated. You can have ones that overlap. So that's really a huge Venn diagram. You can have ones that overlap. You can have ones where one's inside the other. So these are a couple different. So you need to find one that represents these. All right, let's move to question 2. Question 2 says a water hose discharges water at a rate of 45 gallons per minute. Per is a key. Which graph has a slope that best represents this rate? So in this question, the best way I can think to do this is to write the equation and get an idea of what you're doing. So we only have one number in here. So we've only got two equations that we own. We own y equals kx and y equals mx plus b. Well, this only has one number and there's no hidden number anywhere, so this is not it. Since they gave us a number and it's per minute and it's adding water, so it discharges, it's adding water, so we can replace that. So we know that we have 45 gallons is k. Now I can type, once I get that, I can type into my calculator and get some kind of a graph that'll give me an idea what I do. Alright, so let's look at question number 3. It says Melissa is saving $25 that she has earned for washing her mom's car. She earns $10 every week for doing chores, which she also saves. Which function can be used to find T, the amount of money Melissa has saved at the end of N weeks doing chores? So let's look. Again, going just like question 1, we have two numbers in here. Am I too far? Sorry. I think let me zoom out a little bit. I think you can see everything. I'm looking up on the board. That'll help a little bit. Okay. So we've got two numbers. Going back to what we talked about before, this is obviously a y equals mx plus b question, right? Except they're going to use t in place of y, and they're going to use n in place of x. And that's all they're going to do. So that sets it up. You can set it up. Remember, when you're looking for m, the slope is always a number that changes, and b is always a number that stays the same. It's a starting point. It's the beginning point. All right, let's look at question 4. So question 4, oops, let me bring this down here. Question 4 says, the table shows the number of gallons of gasoline in a car's gas tank after the car has been driven. So the car is losing gas, X miles. When these data are graphed on a coordinate grid, the points all lie on the same line, which means it's linear. Same line, fancy way to say linear. What are the slope and y-intercept of this line? So it's only asking for two things, slope and y-intercept. So slope, since I've got a bunch of points, slope is pretty easy. It's the formula m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now, for y-intercept, think about this. When I've got a graph and I have a line that's going through, the y-intercept, the coordinates for it, x is always 0, and whatever is with it is b. So if you have a pair of coordinates where x is 0, then you already know the y-intercept. All right, number 5. Carlos has a square tablecloth with a total of 48 square feet. Always look out for those. Which measurement is closest to the length of each side of the tablecloth in feet? When you see this, this is literally saying find the square root. So find the square root of whatever number is square feet, because a square, the area of a square is side times side, or s squared. So it's just a square root problem. All right, Number 6. The total number of washcloths y contained in x packages can be represented by the equation y equals 8x. Which of the graphs best represents this situation? So this is just a graph. So draw yourself a graph, put it on the calculator, and see where it comes. Is it a positive slope, a negative slope? What's it going to look like? You're going to have to wait for the question to find out the scales. All right. Number 7. Which set of ordered pairs represents y as a function of x? So a function means each input has exactly one output. That means in an equation, if I put in 1 and I get out 4, the next time I put in 1, I got to get out 4. So when you're looking through, so ordered pairs, it'll be written something like this. You'll get some pairs. You'll have some x, comma, some y. You'll have another x, comma, another y. And it can go on for a long time. I'm just going to put 3 here just to save myself. And what you're looking for is any x the same. If you don't have the same x anywhere, it's definitely a function. If you have an x that's the same in multiple places and the y is different in those 2 places, it's not a function. Enough said. Question 8. Which table contains only corresponding x values and y values where the value of y is 3 more than the quotient of x and 2? So you're going to have a bunch of tables. You need to set up this equation. So you need to set up the equation where y is 3 more than the quotient of x and 2. Quotient is a fancy word for division. And you always put it as this label. So y is, remember, is a fancy word for equals. And then you can add the rest. Okay? Question 9. The value of y varies directly with x. This means it's a proportional relationship or a ratio. And it's proportional. Whoops. I started spelling rational. And it's proportional. So it's a proportional ratio. So it gives you 2 values. Y equals the 75 and x equals 1/2. What is the value of y when x is 2/4? So I'm setting up a ratio. I set it up. So 1 over 3 equals something over 12. Well, it's kind of what you got here, right? Well, let me put a y, since y is always over x. It's always y over x, because that's our ratios, right? So I can solve this using the cross method. So 1 times 12 equals 3 times y, or 3y. And then I break that down so that 1 times anything itself equals 3y. Divide both sides by 3. Oops. I lose that. I bring down the y. 12 divided by 3 is 4, so I would know that y is 4 if I was using this number. So you just have to set up that equation. All right, number 10. Which graph shows a non-proportional linear relationship between x and y? So non-proportional, which means my graph is going to have something where the line does not go through the origin. As long as the graph doesn't go through the origin, I've got a non-proportional. And a line is a straight line. It can't be a squiggle. It can't be something else. That's all I can do. Number 11. Clarissa needs $2,500 loan in order to buy a car. Which loan option would allow her to pay the least amount of interest? So we're looking for least amount of interest, right? Well, we know the principal is $2,500. We don't know the term. So all we can do is say interest equals PRT in case it's a simple loan. For simple interest. If it's for compound interest, then we know that A equals P times R, oops, sorry, that's 1 plus R, not R plus 1, times 1 plus R to the time. And then you just got to wait and see what they come up to. You can calculate them all out and figure out which one she pays the least in. It really doesn't matter. At least we know that's one principal, so whichever one's cheapest is the one that has the least interest. All right, question 12. The mass of a textbook is approximately 0.00165 metric ton. How is that number written in scientific notation? Well, we know that when we write a number, any number, let's say 3.14 because times 10, if it's a positive exponent, that number is greater than 1. So that number is always greater than 1. If we write it and it's got a negative exponent, it is less than 1, which means it's going to be a decimal, kind of like ours is. So we know we're going to have a negative exponent. And it's about how many times do I move the decimal place until I have just one digit, one number from 1 to 9 in front of the decimal. And then we write it. All right. I like to say all right a lot, don't I? 13. Which graph does not represent y as a function of x? So if y is a function of x, that means it has no repeating x values. So it's going to be a line of some sort, whether positive or negative. It can be like a parabola. That's fine because each x value has exactly one y value. But it can't be a reverse. It can't be a straight up and down line because you've got multiple x's. So put dots along your line. Do you have different y's for each of those dots? It's a terribly drawn parabola. Do you have different dots along that line? Are they different? For one x, do you have one y? The answer is yes. Okay. So 14. Which situation represents a proportional relationship? Well, we're looking for a situation where there's no b. There is no initial value. So we want something that has no b, no starting or initial value. Whoops. Can't spell initial. We want something where everything is per. Everything is per. Now, we can have multiple pers, but as long as the fee is charged for everything there, and there's no specific one-time fee, it's a proportional relationship. Number 15. Paula completely covered a square wall using 87.5 square feet. We talked about that before. Which measurement close to the side length of the wall? So it's a square wall. We're talking square feet. That's enough said. All right. Number 16. I said all right again. Merry Christmas. Number 16. The graph shows the relationship between the cost of some pecans, we can say pecans, and the weight of the pecans in pounds. Which function best represents the relationship shown in the graph? Function here using in the place of the word equation. So you just have to write the equation a line. Find a vertex or a lattice point and do y equals kx. Find k. Number 17. 2 8th grade classes are selling raffle tickets to raise money. One class is selling tickets for $250 each and has already raised $350. The other class is selling tickets for $3 each and has already raised $225. Which equation can be used to find T, the number of tickets each class needs to sell, the total amount raised the same for both classes? Okay, this is where you're setting up an equation where you're saying that A equals B. In this case, this is A. So write the equation for this. So these are $250 each, $250 per ticket, all right? And there's your fixed amount, $3 per ticket. There's your fixed amount. Make them equal, and then solve. Number 18. Which situation can best be represented by this equation? So let's read it. We have a $350 as a starting amount. We have something added to it that's 5 per something, equals $650, another starting amount, minus 8 times something. So we got to go figure that out. You're going to have to wait for that. The best thing you can do is just set this up and realize what you're doing. One side you're adding, the other side you're taking away from. Number 19. What value of x makes this equation true? This is easy. Solve this for x. So you'll solve it by hand, use nsolve, whatever. Solve by x. Number 20. The two lines graphed on the coordinate grid each represent an equation. Which ordered pair represents the solution to both equations? That ordered pair is where they intersect. That's the solution. So it's going to be written as something like x comma y. You just got to find x and y. Number 21. Two numbers are shown on the number line. Which value is not located between these two numbers on the number line? All right, so they're obviously using mixed numbers here. So what I'm going to do is find the decimal equivalent for both numbers. Equivalent for both numbers. Then when I get the questions, I'm going to do the same thing for each of those. And I'll find the one that fits between. Excuse me. Number 22. The daily attendance at a bowling alley was recorded for 15 days. The scatter plot shows the number of lanes rented each day and the number of people who bowled that day. Which statement is best supported by the scatter plot? So we're going to analyze our scatter plot knowing everything we know. We know that there are three types of association. So types of association. There's no, there's positive, and there's negative. So positive rises to the right, negative tends to go down. We know there's also linear. It's either linear or nonlinear. So it either roughly forms a line or it doesn't. Well, that's all we can do. So identify this and wait to see what the answers give you so that you can know. So identify which of these is and wait and read. I'm going to sharpen my pencil, make a grinding noise. Personal pet peeve, I hate dull pencils. All right, I said it already again. An 8th grade student estimated that she needs $8,800 for tuition and fees for each year of college. She already has $5,000 in the savings account. The table shows the projected future value of the account in 5 years based on different monthly deposits. The student wants to have enough money saved in 5 years to pay the tuition and fees for her first 2 years of college. Based on this table, what's the minimum amount she should deposit in the savings account every month? Well, it costs $8,800 per year, and she needs 2 years. So that's times 2, and then figure out which of these values is sufficient to make it. That's as hard as that question gets. All right, I did it again. I'm going to figure out something. Elfin. I'm going to say elfin. Elfin. The number of gift baskets Nikki can make varies directly with the amount of time she spends making the baskets. This is a proportional, right? We've already done this where we had a proportional relationship where y over x. I'm sorry, let me finish reading. She can make 4 baskets in 1/2 hour. How many How many baskets can you make in 5 hours? So we already know y over x where we're setting a proportion. So 1/2 equals something over 4. And we just go back and do the cross multiplication just like we did before. All right. I did it again, Elfin. An aquarium is being filled with water. That means they're adding. The graph shows the height of the water over time as the aquarium is being filled. Which statement best describes the rate of change? So, how would you describe this rate of change? Is it positive? Is it negative? I would also probably find my equation just so I'll know what it is. And those two things are what you got to find. Number 26. Excuse me again. Elfin. I did it. A rectangle's perimeter and area have the same numerical value. So what we're saying here is perimeter equals area. The width of the rectangle, the W, is 3. What's the length of the rectangle in units? So I've got two equations. Perimeter is equal to 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. or 2L plus 2W. Area equals length times width. So I've got 1. I know that width is, I can replace the W's with that 3 and then make the two equations equal and find out what L is and solve. Let's just solve for L. So solve for L. 27. Elfin. I used it. Emily sells greeting cards. The graph models the linear relationship between the number of boxes cards she sells and her profit. Which of these best describes the profit Emily makes from selling these? Again, she's obviously making a positive. So really what I need to solve the equation. And remember that K is a ratio where 1/2 can equal 2/4 equals 3/6. Again, so K can be any of these. I would prefer it simplified, but they can write it differently. So find out what K is. 28. Which value of X makes the inequality true? Here we've got mixed numbers. Find decimal equivalents. This is literally the same as the number line that we had before. And if it helps you, make a number line. Put 1/8 or whatever its decimal equivalent is here, and put 18% or whatever its decimal equivalent is there. Then when you get the questions, solve for each of those and figure out which one lies between them. Good enough? 29. Elfin. Customers at a bank are charged a fee when they exchange US dollars for foreign currency. Now they charge us a fee. It happens. The function f of x equals 78.5x minus 392.5, that's their fee, can be used to determine the number of Japanese yen a customer receives in exchange for x dollars, where x is greater than 5. Meaning, if you get under $5, their fee wipes you out. Which table shows this relationship? So, whenever you see f of x, that's literally just y. So y equals, that equation is literally 78.5 x minus 392.5. So when they give you a table, and it has either this way x and y values, and your x value is 10, all you got to do is plug 10 in here, times, and do the equation, then find the y value. And do that for each of them, and you're going to find which table matches. Remember, they can do tables two ways. It can be x over y. We don't really care. Whatever x is, we got to find the value of y. So find the table that works. Work your way through all of them until one of them works all the way through. Number 30. Mr. Wilkins deposited $2,500 in a new account at his bank. The bank pays 6.5 interest compounded annually on this account. Mr. Wilkins makes no additional deposits or withdrawals. Which amount is closest to the balance of the account after 2 years? So they gave you the principal, they gave you the rate, they told you it was compound, and they gave you the time. So you know for compound interest, A equals the principal, A is the total amount, principal times 1 plus the rate to the t power, and solve it. I hope that helps. I hope you watched it. I hope you took notes. Remember, you can slow this down and do it individually. Merry Christmas.